Pell Grants. These are government-given grants to students to help them go through college. Now, I've had some personal experience with Pell Grants. Now, the thing is that if you earn a certain amount of money or higher, you can't be on a Pell Grant. If you have a certain amount in a bank account, you can't be on a Pell Grant. It doesn't matter if your bank account is a joint account with somebody else and that somebody else has most of the money. The point is, they still think you're rich, and you're really not. Well, if that person you have a joint account with is so rich, they should pay for your education. It's not necessarily their responsibility to pay for my education. Now, that person could be a sibling, a parent, or even a spouse. Well, your spouse makes more, so your spouse should pay for your education. In a spouse's case, I would agree, but if it's a sibling, if you got an older sister or brother you have an account with, they're not responsible for your education. If they're nice enough to pay for it, that's one thing, but they don't have to pay for it because just because they're blood relations doesn't mean they have to send you to school. As a parent, that's one thing, but if it's a sister or brother, that doesn't necessarily mean you may be just living with them because it's a good living arrangement. They may have allowed you on the bank account just so that you could establish some banking history. Nothing more. Maybe they're just being real nice to you. That's their money, not yours. You may have a little bit of money in there, but most of it's somebody else's, so there you go. Anyway, the family of that student must not earn over $60,000 a year. Now let's say you have two parents, they're each earning about, say, $20,000 apiece. And they forced you to go to get a job to stay at their house. So you end up making about 20 grand a year. Okay, that's just scraping by. But what the government's saying is, well, your parents are making $20,000 a year each, and you're making $20,000 a year, so there's your $60,000. You're disqualified. Just because of that. Doesn't matter, all three of you are just scraping by. That disqualifies you. But that's not bad enough. They'll check your bank account, and like I said, if you have a bank account with a sibling, and that sibling has a lot of money, but you don't, they still disqualify you. But it gets worse. They tell you you have to take at least 2 classes a semester. At least 2 a semester. That's all fine and dandy if your workplace will let you off. But if you work retail, that can get very tricky. You may get a cut in hours because you're going to school. So now you can't support yourself, but you're in school. That's ridiculous. But it gets worse. Because they'll pay for the classes. But the thing is that they only pay you a certain amount. And if your classes take up all that tuition money that they pay to you, how are you going to pay for the books? What about transportation? You can't afford to live in a dorm, so you have to drive to the college. How are you going to afford to do that? They've just paid your tuition and nothing else. You're still screwed. So, and the thing is, they issue it on the poorest people's basis up. So if the Pell Grant money runs out before they get to your application, you're still screwed. Because they take up the poorest cases first. So you have to practically be on the streets to get the Pell Grant. And that's if you're lucky. That's a problem. So, here you are, you're practically destitute, you can't get the... Well, they say, well, take virtual courses. That is if you can afford the internet. If you can't afford the internet, you're not going to have that either. And you still may have to talk to the instructor. How are you going to get to the instructor if you have no car and no gas? I'd like to know that. The government will find every reason under the book to not pay you to go to college. It's that simple. And I can't tell you how many rules and regulations they've got. Look at their application. You'll find out. And you say, well, that's a horrible trap. What do we do? Can't pay for college myself, and because of so many rules on the Pell Grant, we can't get in. We have to be practically on the streets to get in. Now, if we're on the streets, how are we going to get to college? How are we going to pay for the internet for the virtual courses? We can't. So now what do we do? Okay. You have the Speed Learners channel. Now, if you learn enough here on my YouTube channel, you can proficiency out of a bunch of courses. You can discuss that with your instructors, and if you do land on the Pell Grant after that, you won't have to be on it very long. Then you can get in there and you can graduate. Or maybe by that time you can actually display to your employer that you're a lot smarter than the average bear. They might give you a better job, and then therefore you can pay for your own college. But either way, coming here was the first smart move you made. The thing is that you don't have to make time for classes. You don't have to do a massive amount of studying. There are no tests here. It's just a lot of good education, and if you memorize this stuff for yourself, you can apply it in your life and maybe make a decent life. Now, this channel will continue to grow and expand, and will continue to cover more and more topics until such time as you can educate yourself right here. Then you don't have to pay for it. Like I said, and I have said this more than once, if Obama wants to fix the educational system, let him. I'm not waiting for him to do it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm teaching you. So that's all I've got to say about all this. I will tell you more in a future video, so stay tuned.